Welcome, sales professionals, those aspiring to be. You might be a sales associate and you're making the move up into sales professionalism. Here at List and Sell Online, this is part of the List and Sell Tour, obviously sales trainer. It's all about taking us from we're assuming you already have a foothold into the market, or you have or are getting listings coming on board, and now you're looking to build market share. Today's session will be very much about that, and certainly it's going to have a whole lot of relevance to what's going on at this time of the year, and I'd also like it to give it loads of relevance as to how it's pertaining to precisely what's happening inside the real estate market at the moment. So of course I'm up at Sparrows, where I'm doing some international training now with a team earlier in the day, and I guess you just can't help it. This is going to be a little bit of an adjunct from what was done and said this morning, because some things came to mind. But let me just start by saying that the session today, so we're up to basically session 13, T213, the T being for traction, 2 being for the second phase of elevating your career up in and around prospects. And, so in recent ones we've spoken about, which I will allude to today, platforming. And that's basically about making sure that everything you are doing and saying as it relates to prospecting is consistent in through your listing presentation, is consistent in through the delivery of your product. And if we've got that consistency and reliability, well, it makes it easy for people to jump on and buy. And I think buying us as real estate agents is by far and away the most important thing. Some of you might be having difficulty in and around fee negotiation. It's not uncommon with what's transpired in the market and a change. And this is only because property sellers, rightly or wrongly, are getting hold of the good old, sorry, I just actually looked at a note. But this is because property sellers are basically being left to really running comparisons on agents on not much more than fees and charges. And I say this over and over again, and I know some of you might be a little bit, oh, here he goes again on that. But and if you are, then maybe you actually have heard it. But what I'm openly saying to a lot of estate agents right now is that, the only reason that a seller really resorts back to fees and charges or starts to take you to task on marketing is because they see, in the first instance, the marketing as an expense. And in terms of the fee, they don't see, or I shouldn't say they don't see, because that's unfair, but they might see a slight erosion in and around value. So I openly say that you've got to make sure that your platforming, the way that you set it up, is very consistent with the product that you have on offer, and everything that you do and say is consistent with that product that you have on offer. Now, the encouragement I've always given estate agents, especially those that are students and subscribe to the sales trainer way of thinking, is to actually contrast your product clearly against that of the competition. And in the first instance, I say that, if there is a frustration that sellers are choosing you or choosing agents based upon the price they're quoting for the property, coupled with the fees and or marketing investment that the agent's asking for, mind you, that they're not actually your competitors. If they are going down the path of marketing, they're not thinking of it in the context of being an investment, because they're obviously giving it away for free. That's what they're saying. And in turn, they're looking at it as though it is an expense. So they're only looking at it in a one-dimensional fashion, not least of which is that they call it vendor paid advertising. So we want to focus and understand where the platforming exists. Secondly, the last one, right after that, we started talking in the listing capacity about how marketing plays its role. We contrasted the difference between advertising and marketing. We made it very clear that advertising is merely the conduit which gets the word out, and that marketing is the message that you send down. All of these things are important. And, you know, I've also said to you very clearly in the past that marketing transcends stuff that we do, or promotion and advertising, and then of course the marketing of the properties per se. Marketing transcends everything. It permeates just about every facet of the real estate business now. For us, and for me primarily, it plays almost its most vital role in the prospecting space, that you can talk to so many more people, especially as it relates to presence. And that's going to be some of the subject matter that I have for you today. Thirdly, you know, then we started to speak about, we called it pandemonium, sort of making sense of what's going on. What I'm going to talk to you today is a little bit of an add-on to that, and clearing us up as we move into the fourth quarter. And then not least of which, last week we started to talk about the listing presentation itself and started to talk about performing. And what I was explaining was that your presentation needs to be very engaging, question-based, question and answers, questions that are rhetorical, that you know the answer to, leading people to definitive conclusions. And essentially, rather than talking at people, educating them, so speaking to them, teaching them something, instead of taking the role of frustration and saying they won't, they don't understand, that sort of stuff, just taking the time to step back and allowing them to properly understand what's going on. And of course, in property careers, we've done a similar thing. So we're mainly focused around the orientation. In fact, this morning I did a very protracted session about understanding in a reverse fashion where the clients are. So for a lot of you right now, the big issue may well be that you just don't have enough people that you are physically speaking to. Enough people on what I refer to as your active property seller list, your APS list. Some call it a chase list. These are the prospective clients that you are chasing, seeking to list these properties and get them on the market. Or you might call it a listings to get list. Whatever it is, these are the ones that you've identified that you are running down, trying to get onto the market. Well, let's just face it, you are kind of at a difficult part. And what I've made it very clear inside of property careers is with orientation, you need to make that orientation very centric to motive. I'm going to compound that very point here today and explain to you how it is that you set up, because the topic matter today is what I call bouncing. And what you want to do is you want to set up the right platform so that you can bounce from here rather successfully into the following year, next year, this being the last quarter of the year. I want to show you how that for Christmas you enjoy the benefits of a very nice big fat bonus check, because you actually have very strong productivity through this month into November and also December by very cleverly melding December into November. We call this Nocember. And I'll show you that if you fail to do a couple of things right now, the chances of you having a good month, and even worse, the chances of you running the risk of having a very poor start to the new year, actually exasperate. So we want to be very, very clever about how we set it up. So when I talk about bouncing, what I am referring to is the 3 months that make up this quarter are vastly different to any other, because we've got October, which I call Rocktober. This is the month by which we bounce into a successful quarter and then bounce into a very successful new year. So you need to set up the platform by which you do that. As I said, we meld the other 2 months together. And then as we get from this month into next, we want to build a very strong APS list, which I'm about to talk about. And that APS list, we just move in November or December, as I'm going to call it, and we disseminate those that are going to be looking to move prior to Christmas, or at the very least have their property sold prior to Christmas, and those that are looking to set it up to start the new year. And this all is built around one very simple foundation in Rocktober, in the bounce month. And that is that you need to build your APS list to a minimum of 25 active property sellers. Now, for some of you sitting there right now, if your list is in single figures, even worse, if it's down around 4, 5, or 6, you might hear that and then almost go into a state of apoplexy. Remembering that I'm not talking necessarily about amplifying that list around a whole lot of absolute dead set certs. And in fact, as I have alluded to in previous months, I very much caution you. I'm not saying don't go at it enthusiastically, because beyond any shadow of a doubt, the very two sacred ingredients, if you like, that attract property sellers and allow them to hang their hat with someone are those two ingredients I've talked about without any doubt. That is enthusiasm and confidence. But that enthusiasm and confidence doesn't have to step across the line to the point where you become a belligerent and annoying, quite an annoyance, because you are literally pestering people. I don't know if you've ever seen this. I've borne witness to it many, many times, where a salesperson is following someone up, but following them up with not much to say other than when are you going to get the property on, and pestering them around that. You see, if you drag your agenda to a seller, they don't feel the love. They don't feel that you are caring for them. So what I guess I'm trying to say is, in this month, what you need to do as best you can is work out which of the sellers that are property owners, I'm sorry, that are becoming active out there, which of those can formulate into your list, and how you can build that up to a number of 25 plus. Now, as crazy as this is going to sound to you, if you focus on this build and you do it properly, there is no doubt in my mind that you're going to get not just to 25. If you focus on it, because I say this over and over again to people, that which you focus on grows. So if you focus fundamentally on just building this list, it will build, and you will have the numbers in no time at all. And then if you service that list around a few facets that I have alluded to in previous weeks, but make it your primary consideration, I have not little doubt, I have absolutely no doubt that from there you will start to receive invitation for people to come. And invariably, as I always say, and I hope you write this down, listings beget listings. So the reality is, if you build on this and you focus on it and it grows, you'll get even more prospects than you'd hope for. And those that I'm actually working with right now, where their prospects have lifted, this is just their potentials, and not all of them will sell, but they're up around the 40. Some are, 40. I've actually had one or two that are up around 50. Now, again, it's a very simple equation, because if you've got 40 people on a list, and even if you go at it half-assed, I still reckon, so long as you follow a certain procedure, you are a very strong chance at listing 15 of them. Or at the very least, you're going to get 15 listing presentations, I would have thought. And, so long as when you open your mouth, the right words fall out, you're going to get the listings and everything's going to be A-okay. But my guess is, if you give it all of your energy and you give it a lot of zeal and you give it that enthusiasm and you give it that level of confidence, you're going to get far more than that. So if you don't build that list, well, then you're in all sorts of trouble. So in the first instance, we've got to build it. Now, where would you be looking for that? Well, I can say, the other thing that I actually really want to impress upon most of you, especially if you have, I guess, gone at the prospecting equation with looking at a definitive area, which we encourage. So part of our strategy is for you to pick a defined area. Basically, that area needs to be roughly 2,000 to maybe as high, if you're a bit of a thrill seeker, as high as 5,000 properties. The rule of thumb is for every 1,000 properties on capacity, you can, at optimum level, move it to a space where you're getting roughly 20 sales per annum for every 1,000 properties. Now, I can't guarantee that, but the capacity will be there. So if you want to do 40 sales, you need to be looking at an area that's a minimum of 2,000, and I guess so on. You know, if you want to do 60 sales, 3,000. And yeah, it feels like there's a lot of work there, but that's the rule of thumb that we go with on capacity. Now, if you're looking at that area, and if you're looking at your inventory, or you're looking back over the last 6 months, and the majority of the listings that you have gotten have not been centric to that area, well, then the encouragement or the incentive for you to leverage in and around that listings, the listings that you're getting out of area, is not there. And this can also contribute to your stop-start productivity. Nothing wrong with it. And I'm not saying, please believe me, if I get an opportunity that's outside of the area that I'm coveting, but that's a saleable list, of course I go for it. I'm not counting that or figuring that in to my service patch where I am. I like the idea of getting a 30% market share and becoming a player. And again, just a reminder of that, 60 to 90% of all the listings in any one area are usually shared among 3 agents. I call these the players. This should be your aim, to become a player in a definitive market, because once you get there, the labor content to maintain that market share is not nearly as high as you might think. Now comes the next problem, if I can call it that, in and around the marketing and I guess servicing that agents do on a definitive area. I say, what are you doing and saying with those clients that fall onto your chase list, with those clients that are on your active property seller list? And is this conducive to strong engagement with you, not necessarily around getting to the listing presentation, not necessarily around pricing the property, although that can play into it somewhat. I'm looking to create an exchange that in rapid fire fashion, over a short period of time, forges a personable relationship, albeit a commercial, but personable relationship, not personal relationship. I don't want to coochie-coo people and have them friends, but I want to have a personable relationship of a professional capacity on a professional level. So this is the big point that I made this morning when I was talking to another group, and one that I really want to impress upon all of you that subscribe to Sales Trainer Online. And that is this. And again, I ask you to write it down. You have to see yourself as others see you. This is probably the most important point that I can raise. So often I'm seeing agents where they have met someone early on, or they have lost the listing and they've lost it to a competitor where maybe they haven't been called in, or they have been called in and a competitor might have underclipped them on fee or clipped them on the marketing contribution or something like that. And we put it down to that being the problem. I don't. I put it down to the fact that you were not able to present your product in a manner that represented that value, that allowed you to still be in there competing. And that there was no obligation around the servicing that you presented, and no giving on your part freely without any condition beforehand. This is absolutely important. So, and one of the points I try to make, or how I articulate this, and I don't have the time to actually share this morning, but what I say to agents is, as you build that list, you have to see yourself as they see you. So you have to look at it from their perspective, what they've seen emanate from you and what they perhaps may have seen coming from a competing agent, what they might have done. And if for them, there's no absolute discernible difference, well, little wonder that for them, it's going to boil down to the difference that might be on offer around the fees and charges, or worse, especially if that other agent has done something that stands out against you. So once you've built this list up, once you're at 25 or plus, you just have to look at it from this perspective. I say, what I need to do now is service the living daylights out of these people so that I can earn the right to offer advice ahead of price. And then they start to seek my, not just opinion, but perhaps my judgment on which way they need to turn. I've been doing this for a very, very long time. And I can even take it back to the archaic days. I won't delve into this because it was a lot different back then. But one of the greatest impressors that I had was speed. Now, with the advent of the internet, you've already got speed at your fingertips and there's no value in this. But if I go back to years ago, if I spoke to someone, had a document that I wanted them to see, it would be in their hands within half an hour in hard copy, because I knew this was a huge impressor. And especially when they got that, if it had a professional look that was consistent with everything that I was doing and saying, with everything that I was doing and saying in and around my product, I would win their favor. So my pitch, my angle, my discernible point of difference in those days was professionalism. That my product had to look, incredibly professional, above and beyond each of the competitors I dealt with. Another area that I competed in was with and around the open for inspections. This is important because I'm going to show you how that has developed, how that has progressed, and how we can move that into this space now. So for example, I've got two of our guys that are one of them is a real estate rock star and he's working with Stuart Hatfield and Ange Sorrellis. They are absolutely killing it. 38 they have. And they've just made some moves that I'm about to share with you in prospecting. So they've got their list to 38. They put a lot of energy and focus into this, notwithstanding the fact that Melbourne was in severe lockdown just recently. This meant that they were unable to show property. They were unable to go and do listing presentations in person. They weren't even able to get photographers out to properties to send properties from listed to live. Yet despite all of this and those lockdowns, those restrictions that had only been lifted during that lockdown, they managed to sell 2 or 3 properties. And in the last week and a half have sold 6. But importantly, in bounce month, because they built that list to 38, did all of the groundwork that I'm talking about and are continuing to do so with some few added things that I'm about to share with you. They've moved now 4 listings that were scheduled for after Christmas and they weren't even certain they were looking. They've moved them to not only dead set certainties that they are the chosen agent, but they've now moved them into now November, and these will be sold this quarter. And this has all been by them letting go of the push to get down to do the presentation. They weren't able to do that anyway, but the absolute amplification of service and getting stuff out to them without falling into that god-awful trap of cynicism. I cannot begin to tell you how dangerous, if you think COVID-19 is a dangerous virus to catch, well, it is. Physically, I don't know, I've lost my marbles. But one of the worst viruses that a sales professional can catch is that of cynicism. If you start believing no one wants to sell, if you start believing there aren't people out there, this is nuts. So just before I move on to how you want to service them, I want to stay on this idea of building that 25 prospective sellers. Please understand this. It's not whether or not they're there, they are. These are the facts. At any one time in your market, there are more people selling than you actually need. So the reality is this: if you could create a connection between you and them, how good would it look? So you need to understand that you don't have to find your sellers. They are already watching you. And once you understand this, don't make judgments. Don't sit there and say, oh, they don't sound motivated, or they're putting it off, or they're procrastinating, or all of that sort of stuff. Just recognize that they've flagged this for you. And then what we have to do is spend a great deal of time impressing them with our professional capacity and service, and make sure that it is absolutely consistent with the contrasted product that we are putting out there. This will create your bounce into an area that the competition cannot compete with. It will completely mitigate the argument around fees and charges. It will set you up in a position of strength when it comes to that, because the reality is, if a seller says or wants to negotiate fee, what they're saying is, I can't see a discernible difference between you and a competitor. Present that discernible difference, then they're all ears with advice around where it stands. Then it's very easy for you. I'm not saying that you don't need to have the argument, but you can move fairly readily into that discussion around how fee is earned anyway, how they always are in charge, which we talked about last week and the week before. So just focus on this. It's most important that you build that list. If it were me right now, I would be absolutely obsessed, because the reality is, I know for a fact, if I've got just a handful of people and I miss one or two of those, I'm pretty much dead in the water. Whereas if I've got 25 opportunities and working them over, even if my conversion is low, it's still going to turn out to be 10, maybe 15. So the number one issue right now is building the number of prospective clients you have that you can actually work at getting to market with you prior to Christmas. Stay on the idea of the bounce month. Once you've actually done that, then I say that you've just got to simply move to servicing them. And I know I'm re-echoing these sentiments, but what I want you to do this week is just look at this from the perspective of that potential seller, and how they might be viewing you and the competition, and how you can use that opportunity to contrast. Got to say this, when a seller says to me, you know, if I'm calling, let's say I'm calling from the sales inquiry log, following them up, I've left it to, it's about 4 weeks of age. I just run that simple dialogue. Hi, sorry to bother you. My name's Mark from Johnson Real Estate. Look, you had an inquiry. In fact, you came to an open for inspection of ours back in July, late July of this year. Have you purchased as yet? Wait till they stop talking. Do you have something to sell? They go, huh? I go, do you have something to sell? They say, well, we will be selling, but we need to find something first. For me, that's bingo. That's it. That's all I needed to hear. Now I've identified them. They're going to sit inside that list. And now I've got to work on impressing the bejesus out of them. Now I can just say, okay, so you need to find something first. Now I might even at that point engage in conversation about that. So were you looking at this property? Did you come to this open for inspection to compare it to yours currently, or was this where you're looking at moving? They go, no, I was just looking at that because we live close by. Bang, now I know where they are. So where are you moving to? Tell me about that. So my conversation now is totally centric to their motive. And this is the big thing that I keep talking about to people. Why did I pick the number of 25? Well, that means once I've got that and I'm engaging those people on a daily basis, working a 5-day week, I can have at least 5 decent conversations. And let me tell you, let me make this perfectly clear. Your success in this quarter and into the new year will be solely reliant upon how many good conversations you are having on a daily basis. And once you get into the mode of having those 5 conversations, I guarantee you that's going to lead to 6 to maybe 7. And before you know it, you're having somewhere between half a dozen and a dozen good conversations per day. And I can almost bet you that's going to lead to listings, it's going to lead to sales, and me to meeting a whole lot more people. It really is that simple. So back to looking at it from our perspective, what do they need to see? First and foremost, you need to get your property seller's research guide into their hands, particularly given that that should be a product statement about you that contrasts you with the competition out there. That needs to go out straight away. Now, even if they pick that up and you use that at, say, the welcome home or the open for inspection to qualify, I would then send them maybe the electronic version. If you haven't got one, work on getting one so that you can send that out and reiterate it, because this is good engagement, good conversation. You immediately then move to putting them onto the SMSing your results list. Those SMSs need to go out twice a week. No more than that, but no less than that. And it doesn't have to be your results. It just has to be someone in your office, someone in your team. And make sure that those SMS texts relate to fulfilling a motive, or they relate to fulfilling a timing constraint, or they have some accolade about the client saying something fabulous that you've done. Try to stay away from blurting on about big price. Try to stay away from selling fast. These are not conducive to satisfying the concerns of property sellers at the moment. Stay on the things that are important to them right now. And they're telling you this. They're saying, I need to find something. So if you say, if you've got a text out there that says, this seller trusted our judgment, got it on, and they moved straight to the new home and were able to secure it, all as a result of heeding our advice. That's good stuff. Third one is, and this is the one that we've really pressed out there with agents, send out a comparative market analysis, a preliminary comparative market analysis that does not have your opinion on it at all and has a cover letter that echoes your sentiments, that it is just a comparative value, it is a subjective opinion, and you're just giving them information. This sets up the platform for further exchange, where you can have good discussions around it, where you can say things to them like, look, what you're going to receive is market value, not comparative value. But this is important to know. It is a benchmark. But don't forget that despite what other agents might be telling you, no two properties are the same to a buyer. And we may augur in at a higher value. What you're doing is keeping the conversation centric to motive, giving them information, and then you can clearly say, yeah, that it's all subjective. What you're going to receive is market value. My job is to turn that into a number that you approve of. Until you approve of it, I don't get paid. See how all this language is the precursor to before you get to the listing presentation, and it's setting it up beautifully. And given that time, given good explanation, you won't be subjected to a hit in fee. And you're building this personable relationship. Then right after that, you send them the newsletter. You make sure that the newsletter each month is in their hands. It doesn't necessarily have to be in this order. Then I would make sure that recommendations or accolades or in some way, shape or form are out to them. Although I would avoid rating agencies like Rate My Agent or otherwise. Don't get me wrong, I'm a great supporter of Rate My Agent. But I mean that I wouldn't be using it in the prospecting mode. And whilst I'm on it, before I forget, do not lose sight of the fact that the most important I've just lost my train of thought. That the most important factor is not bringing in other agents. You don't want to bring them to light. You want to get your point across the line. All right. And if you've got accolades that are going to them where people are saying something of you, where you're not saying of yourself, then it's totally believed. So this goes out there. Then we need to send them information. Now, the next one that we need to send them is an invitation to our open for inspection. This is absolutely critical. Why? Now, it doesn't matter whether they turn up or not, but you need to send them the invitation and make sure that your open for inspection is completely contrasted against that of the competition. It matters very little if they don't come. Again, send it with a cover letter. Make sure it's one of the first ones that go out there. And it doesn't even matter if they don't turn up, as I just said. it matters that you've invited them. It matters that the engagement is there. Now, you're all the while, you're looking in and around this for opportunities to offer advice. And this advice will come through conversation and exchange. You see, it's nothing for me to then say, I might be a couple of weeks down the track, and they'll say, you know, I said, well, remember how you said to me, you don't want to talk about getting your property on until you do find something? They go, yeah. And I say, what will happen if you do find something? Well, then we'll buy it. Well, isn't that dangerous? Given that you don't know where you stand with your own. See, there's all these opportunities to offer advice. This is only founded out from this point. Now, the point that I'm trying to make, because from there you can then move to, and probably this is one of the big ones, getting information on buyers to them. You want to mitigate any chance of them looking at an off-market arrangement. I wouldn't encourage it, but I'm not going to prohibit it. If that's what they want, that's what they want. So I need to talk to them about buyers and say, should yours come to market, these are the people I'd be showing through, so that no other competitor has got a chance to get under your guard. But here's the important point. Let's flip this around. Yep. Let's look at this from the perspective of the seller. They've had a few agents in. You, however, have immediately sent them the property seller's research guide. You are twice a week sending them texts about the success that you're having out there. You are indeed, you've sent them a comparative market analysis in the preliminary arrangement with a cover letter that makes it clear that it's just preliminary and you're creating a good platform for conversation. You've invited them openly to an open for inspection to have a look at it. You're sending them information on buyers. You're sending your accolades out. All of this in rapid fire fashion, this is passive contact. You've got this going out to 25 people. Sooner or later, those people are going to say, Mark, what do you think we should do? Mark, can you tell us what you think about this, blah, blah, blah. As they are seeking your advice on things, the invitation will come, and then eventually you can start giving direction into how they ought to attack it. Folks, I can't begin to tell you how important this stuff is. Please focus on it. Build your list of 25. Then we'll move from the bounce month into the productivity. And in December, I'll show you how to bring some of those clients back into before Christmas, how to set those ones up that are after Christmas. And you'll not only have a big quarter for this, you'll start next one with a bang, and you will have consistency of productivity. My name's Mark Dwyer. You can catch me on Mark with a K at salestrainer.com.au, or you can reach me on +61 410 592 165. Look forward to catching you next week. List and sell.